Let me read to you a passage from the 11th chapter of St. Mark's Gospel, verses 11 to 26. It's the Gospel for Friday of the 8th week in Ordinary Time, Year B. St. Mark writes, Jesus entered Jerusalem and went to the temple. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple area and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. When evening came, they went out of the city. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "I tell you the truth. If anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will happen, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive him, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins." That's from Mark chapter 11, verses 11 to 26. I invite you to think of Christ, the hero. You know, Thomas Carlyle, who in his writings was especially interested in heroes, summed up the basic causes of the French Revolution. Hunger and oppression lying heavy on 25 million hearts. This was the prime mover in the French Revolution, as the like will be in all revolutions in all countries. In Carlyle's vision, history turns primarily on the hero, but the masses matter. Marx and Engels regarded the common people as the creators of history. Lenin wrote that politics begins where the masses are. Not where there are thousands, but where there are millions. That is where politics begins. Well, while the politics may have begun with the millions, the problem was that once Lenin and the Bolsheviks gained power, the masses did not matter. It was the same with the French Revolution. Soon the masses were terrorized by the few in the Great Terror. And then there was the dictatorship of one man, Bonaparte. Well, all that aside, the point here is that in human history there is the mass and there is the leader, or the hero. And saints are found in both, and history is shaped by both. On one occasion, Bishop Ullathorne expressed frustration with the laity to Blessed John Henry Newman. Newman's reply was, well, the church would look foolish without them. Now, the leader and hero is dubbed as such largely because the work he does and the courage he displays is seen by the many. He exercises government or leads armies or otherwise wields power publicly. He uses his visible position for the prosecution of notable and worthy goals. But there are also persons completely out of sight who are engaged in more important work, involving greater suffering, greater courage, and greater prudence. The unknown person may be a greater hero, and in a hidden sense, a much greater leader than the public hero. This is most especially the case in the realm of sanctity. Whatever be a person's position before men, the work of personal sanctification involves heroic virtue. I say all this by way of introduction to the greatest leader, the most signal hero of all time, Jesus of Nazareth. He did not lead armies. He did not occupy government, civil government. He did not halt invading hordes. There are many who think of him simply as a wandering preacher who lost his life because of the envy and machinations of the religious authorities of his locality. Hero? Great leader? How was he this? Of course, there are flashes and notices of the heroic quality of his leadership in the gospel accounts of his public ministry. Our gospel passage today that I read earlier from Mark chapter 11 verses 11 to 26 is one such. He has come to Jerusalem, acclaimed as a prophet of God. He enters the temple and reviews the scene, sees the general irreverence, leaves for the night, and then returns the next day. His work of physical cleansing then begins, and a scene of great drama ensues, leaving the temple in silence, free of the hubbub of business. We are given a glimpse of his greatness as a heroic leader by the attitude of the people and the fear of the religious authorities. We read, the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. From the very beginning of his public ministry, Christ displayed instant leadership and heroic courage. His work was incessant, praying by night, laboring by day. He did not flinch before the hostility of the religious leadership. In any confrontation they dared to initiate, they were put to confusion. His holiness was manifest to the people, as was his authority to teach. But if we are to appreciate his heroism and his quality as leader, we must think of his specific mission, which was above all to take away the sin of the world. I'm not sure that such a goal had ever been conceived in the annals of recorded history. I'm not aware of any individual having such a professed aim, to take away the sin of the world. There have been many prophets, genuine or supposed. But where has there been a supposed liberator of the world's sin? Not just of this or that evil, but of the sin of the whole world. It is an original mission, original in conception and unique among human projects. Consider the vastness of such a presumed undertaking. It dwarfs military or political conquests. What is Alexander's conquest of Persia and the lands east of Persia, or Caesar's conquest of Pompey and Gaul, compared to the conquest of the sin of the world? Were we able to see with our eyes the struggle with the world's sin and its victory, how it would outshine any other recorded struggle and victory. This was the undertaking which Jesus Christ met and over which he victoriously prevailed. If we are to understand the stature of Jesus Christ in history, we must not simply view him as, say, the founder of the greatest of man's religions. He was not just a remarkably influential religious leader in history. He was the Redeemer of mankind. He took away the sin of the world by atoning for it himself. He broke the power of sin, a power far greater than any oppressive power in the history of mankind. The slavery of the children of Israel was an image of it, and Moses was an image of the liberator to come. Christ's heroism, his leadership, was exercised in his proper mission, and there was nothing like it in all of human history. He was the greatest of heroes and leaders, and he is our friend. Let us give him our hearts. Let us give him our hearts and our total allegiance then.